an H. The engine doesn't like it either. As a grandmaster, I don't like it more. I'd be way too afraid to play H4. That's too scary. But it was even scarier for Lazovic to get rid of the two bishops.
Well, that was a quick response there from Magnus, because actually that wasn't the best move. As we can see, it was actually better to challenge that light square bishop. And now Dennis getting greedy, and suddenly it's still really finely tuned, because white is threatening to drop back with the queen to the center, and there is a pin in town.
That knight is pin, perpetual pin. Yeah, Magnus played rook takes b2 pretty quickly, Yovi, and the engine doesn't like it. So the engine thinks the players are nervous. Magnus has a pretty good heart rate, 85. Don't tell Arjun that. Magnus has more time on the clock. Still, Magnus is a pawn ahead, but his pawns on c7 and c4 can be captured soon. Knight on g4 is under attack. Magnus playing on both sides of the board. Queen h5, knight g4 on the king side, rook on b2 on the queen side. And we have a very complicated position where when both sides get down to a minute or two, we're going to see heads roll.
We're going to see heads roll. I mean, that will be certainly something to witness. And Magnus just thinking, maybe he can take advantage of the fact that that white queen is out there wandering on the wrong side of the board. If he can't find a response, then it's going to be all about unpinning himself. But it's so tempting, right? To go on the front foot, to go aggressive, especially whilst the white queen is on walkies.
Yeah, as you pointed out, Magnus should have challenged the bishop on f3 by playing bishop e7, and that's why Dennis took on a7, stopping black from playing bishop b7. The queen attacks c7. Both queens are on the side of the board, infiltrating their opponent's position. Magnus just had a really long think and decided to unpin his knight, threatening to get the two bishops. Black doesn't have a mating attack anymore. Black is trying to get the two bishops. But still, Magnus is a pawn ahead. It's a doubled pawn, but Dennis isn't going to want to be a pawn down for much longer. So it's possible that he plays bishop d4, doesn't want to give up his bishops. So a very to and fro game where pieces are getting attacked and moving out of the way. The queens are getting attacked. The queens are going to the opposite side of the board. Very double-edged position. Both sides have 3 minutes. Anything can happen. Magnus doesn't look as happy as he used to look. Dennis looking more solid. Things are turning around, and I think Dennis's position is okay now.
And you know what? I reckon Magnus is now calculating. With the queen offside, okay, there was the possibility of actually sacrificing the bishop. That would have been super complicated, but Magnus goes for the positional response, the minimum risk, and now he starts improving his pieces, and maybe he's going to try and take it to an in-game again.
Yeah, black should be better than ending with the extra pawn, with the passed pawn on c4, the rook on b2. Dennis does a discovered attack on the rook on b2 by playing knight c3. Dennis also wants to take that bishop on f6 with his knight and get the two bishops. Very complicated move. All the pieces are hanging now. They're all in the center. They can all be captured. This typically in a slow game, classical game, the players would be thinking a long time, but they don't have that luxury. They have to play quickly. And as you pointed out, Magnus is trading pieces going into the pawn up endgame. We'll see if Dennis wants to go into the endgame, or instead he takes on c4 and equalizes material.
Yeah. And it's no prizes for guessing which one I would personally go for. It would be just take that pawn, restore material balance, and then go into an endgame. Because absolutely, if the queens get traded off and the c-pawn has disappeared, I would say that actually white is that little bit better. But as it stands, you gotta do the job in hand. And Dennis just thinking, he must not let himself get too far down on the clock. That's when blunders happen, because time travel makes fools of us all.
And that's actually happened in the first game. Dennis got very little time on the clock, blundered in a drawn ending. He did take the pawn. Finally, Magnus developed his queen bishop, which has been on c8 the whole game. Black's pieces are super active. Material is equal. The engine says it's about equal. The only difference is Magnus has a minute more on the clock. Is Dennis going to get in time trouble again and make a mistake?
start harassing the dark square bishop, or he can come out and set a pin. And he goes for another move. Okay, this is normal as well. This is also good. But at some point or another, you have to do what is necessary. And here it comes. That bishop is now going to place itself on the longest diagonal on the board. And now Magnus, he is fighting a space disadvantage. He needs to react.
Yeah, I think I probably had white in this position before just by transposition because I play Queen Students so often with white. And often my queen has to move away from c2 at some point before black gets to play rook c8 and d5. And my queen is misplaced. The queen sometimes goes to b1 after the white rook goes to d1 first, or the queen can go to b3. Right now there's no threats. Magnus just castled. So black can play bishop e2 and short castle, put the rooks in the center, and with more space on the queen side, white's slightly better position for white. So Dennis should be pretty happy with the result of the opening.
Exactly. So let's just put it on the board exactly what white wants to do. You can go anywhere you like with the bishops. You can step up 1 square, even 2 squares. But either way, you're going to be castling the king to the right and just taking the center with the rooks and just arguing and saying to black, hey, you don't have so much space, and there is going to be an opening up of the center eventually. So I think it's a good position to have when you're in a must-win situation with the white pieces.
No, if I was white here, I'd be happy if I was Dennis. Dennis has a position where he can get a slight advantage. Magnus is a little passive, not clear what black should do. And Magnus has to make a decision in the next 3 moves whether to play d6 or d5. And it's not clear what he should play because it leads to different kinds of positions. but I'm not sure that gets him anywhere. Black doesn't mind trading and being slightly passive and solid and awaiting developments. For some reason, Lazovic has been taking quite a long time trying to figure out a way to build up his advantage. As a consequence, Magnus has 2 extra minutes on the clock. That could be important later in the game. We can't have this happen every game, Yovi, that Magnus is ahead 1, 2, 3 minutes on the clock. That's not going to bode well for Lazovic.
No, and you're seeing Magnus, he's maximizing his queen, she's moving forward. The target is that weak maximizing his queen, she's moving forward. The pawn that cannot be defended there on c4. That's exactly what Magnus is thinking. Maybe he's going to even triple on that half-open line, and there's going to be huge pressure for Dennis as the clock ticks down. And remember, if Dennis wants to take this match to Armageddon, if he wants to level, he needs to win with the white pieces. And the problem is there's no easy point of attack. Everything in Magnus's position is well defended. This is the description of overprotection.
No, this is really nice maneuver using the first rank. Super Grandmasters are great at using the first rank to maneuver their pieces. Knight b8 to d7, I've seen that before. And now Magnus very quickly plays b5, putting pressure on the pawn on c4. And once the c and b pawns are traded, then Magnus can play d5 later, and the rooks on the d file are sort of hitting on that strong d pawn. I actually like Black's position now. I'd rather have Black. This doesn't look like White can do anything. And not only that, Dennis is taking a lot of time. Looks like he's really getting outplayed this game. Black has the advantage. Black has more center pawns. Black has 3 extra minutes. So far, advantage Magnus. And it's a must-win game for Dennis. Dennis is down 2-1. It's a 4-game match, the first set. Dennis has to win to force Armageddon. Otherwise, he's down 1-0. So far, it's looking like all Magnus this game, Yovi.
Yeah, I was going to say, look at that. The knight comes in, it's going to post up into the middle of the board. And the thing is, and this is going to be Dennis's biggest challenge, is that his strengths are the same strengths that Magnus possesses. They have very much the same style. It's very clinical, very patient, and we see why Magnus is the world #1. So decision here, do you recapture with the knight? That looks very logical. Or do you just start to change the nature of the position? He takes with the pawn, and now I'm expecting those pawns to start advancing.
Yeah, I like what's transpired here for Dennis, because the game is really tricky now with game becoming completely asymmetrical. Black's position is still better, but at least White has 2 passed pawns, something you can look forward to later. Magnus is going to have to play his best game now to make sure White doesn't advance those pawns and make sure Dennis doesn't blockade the queenside pawns. Magnus played the moves he thought they were the best. But maybe this made the game trickier and puts Dennis back in the game, even though Dennis has a big time disadvantage. Maybe he can catch up if Magnus can't figure out how to prosecute this initiative in the center.
Yeah, he doesn't have to rush though, because it's not going to be very easy for White to mobilize the pawns on the left. You know, if you step up with one pawn, the bishop is going to come in, perhaps capture, perhaps start eyeballing some squares. So this position definitely has gotten a lot riskier for both sides, but Magnus still has some time. He does improve his king, and Dennis needing to win, he starts to grab space on the right side of the board. But the left is where it's all happening.
No, I think Magnus still has an excellent position, but I think the match dictates that since White must win, things have been improving White's position for that perspective. I think there's more winning chances. Pushing all of his pawns on both sides of the board. Magnus trades the knights. Magnus shaking his head, doesn't like the way he's been playing this position. The engine agrees. The engine actually likes White now. White has a nice blockade in the center. White's playing aggressively on the king side. F5. Very aggressive move from Dennis.
Yeah, but what a beautiful move, because suddenly, what are you going to do about the pawn that's under fire? If you step up, chase away the white knight, well, it leaves behind a weak sibling there in the middle. That's not going to be easy to defend. And suddenly, just like that, Black's pawns could have become immobilized and now sitting targets. And we could here be seeing perhaps the start of Dennis taking over. Tax the rook. Rook has to move. Now you can come over with the other pawn, and it's going to be white's 2 pawns on the left that are going to be racing up the board. Dennis, 1 minute and 26 seconds, and he has to generate play. He has to put the pressure, and he doesn't play the pawn move that I wanted. Instead, he challenges in the center. Is this the right direction, though?
Dennis is making a lot of pawn moves, f5, b5, e4. The engine likes some of them, doesn't like other ones. It says the position's about equal. Dennis still has a problem on the clock, but this is a 3-result game. All 3 results can happen. Both sides have lots of passed pawns. Magnus sacrifices the exchange, getting rid of white's dangerous passed b pawn. Now black has 2 dangerous pawns. Magnus is pretty happy with himself. I think he likes his exchange sack because he has the beautiful pawn duo on d4 and c4.
Exactly, and he's going to take over because it's not about what the pieces are, it's what they do. And take a look at that pawn center that Magnus has. They are primed and ready to advance. And Magnus doesn't even have to rush. He can do things in his normal trademark style. Just start improving the king. He can also improve the knight. It's going to be such a difficult task for Dennis to win this one. Magnus advancing the pawn. So maybe Dennis can do the same in turn. Maybe he can sacrifice some pieces.
Boy, Magnus is really excited at this point in time. He's really yelling at what's going on. c3, the d pawn is pinned. The d4 pawn is pinned. The bishop on c3 is pinned. Everything is pinned to the center. There's a lot of tactics. King e8, the engine likes that move, defending the knight. We couldn't take the bishop on c3 because the knight was hanging. Now both sides have passed pawns.
But definitely, I got to say that Dennis is improving his position as he's gotten rid of black's biggest asset. But we're seeing Magnus, he's just holding firm. He does have plenty of material for that sacrificed exchange, the rook, and now the rook coming down. I mean, he's got a lovely fortress going on, and just take a look at Dennis's time, under 30 seconds.
Yeah, I was just looking at that. 27 seconds. Magnus has 1:49. The position's about equal. Pair with Magnus. He gets unfair pairings. Why can't Magnus get paired with Magnus? Then we can see how strong he really is. Instead, the other players get paired with Magnus, and you can see they're already on the back foot when the match begins. Magnus winning pretty handily, 3-1. That was the first match they play. They play another 4-game match. The only way Dennis can come back is if he wins the second match. Then they play a third match of 2 games, and he has to win that match as well. Is Dennis up to the challenge, or is Magnus just too Magnus?
And there we're seeing Magnus in clinical mode as he blocks those checks. He gets himself into that advantageous endgame. And we're seeing here it was just a case of those killer pawns. Nothing can stop Magnus as we are going to go straight to the studio.
We were there. For every click, every clutch, every respawn. We're here. Now. The proud founding partner of